This is a video interview in Suffolk, 2019, bonobo experience. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Leopard. I live in Tennessee, and I've known bonobo harmony for 4 or 5 years.
So I've just got a series of questions. There's about 10 questions. Answer them as long or as short as you like, or you can even sort of pass if you don't want to answer. What point in the retreat evoked the most positive emotion in you, and can you label that emotion?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is doing the sort of like in the womb experience, and it was a very, very deep sense of calm. So I think that was very profound. And then at the end there, when we were all just sort of like, laying together and just gently stroking and touching, real sense of togetherness and trust, which was really beautiful.
What point in the retreat evoked the most negative emotion in you, and can you label that emotion?
Interesting. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I think there was a lot of fear in a way around the introduction to the idea of the orgy. It wasn't deep fear, but I think there was a sort of a sense of challenge around it that sort of like maybe triggered some sort of deeper fear of intimacy. So I think that came up for me a little bit there.
What point in the retreat brought you out of your comfort zone? What did you feel?
Well, I suppose, partly what I just mentioned. But then I think, another part was there were times when, we were sort of like, trying to interact as bonobos, and, I would just sort of like get this sense of like, oh, I can't do this. This is, this is stupid, or, that kind of idea, so there was those moments when you just sort of like come out of your, actually you might be playing along really nicely, and then suddenly, you just like get that sort of rational kind of like, voice that says like, oh, this is stupid. So, there were those moments occasionally.
What point in the workshop was most beneficial to you?
I think a lot of it was beneficial. I feel like, in a way, so I think the most beneficial thing was just getting closer to people in a non-verbal and physical way, just sort of feeling that I feel like, the experience I had with these people will definitely bring me closer to them as my friendships develop with these people.
What was your experience of physical touch?
For the most part, I feel fairly comfortable with physical touch. Although, obviously, sometimes some people are easier to engage with physical touch than others. So, I think for the most part, the workshop allowed me to explore physical touch with people I wouldn't necessarily have explored that with. Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself, if anything?
I think that, I don't necessarily learn this, but I think I was reminded that I really enjoy this kind of, sort of a controlled environment to discover touch and sort of get challenged around that kind of thing. I think also it just occurs to me that the context of the bonobo, and then also the chimp workshop that we did, I think it just sort of made me think a little bit about sort of other perspectives of animals, sort of take us out of our human mind a little bit and just sort of think about, how other animals might interact and how their reality is very different from our own.
What did you learn about bonobos?
Well, really knew very little about bonobos. I just sort of done one workshop before, and I've heard a little bit about bonobos and their the more egalitarian culture. But I feel like that information deepened for me for sure, and I think I've just sort of somehow gotten just a deeper awareness of their existence in the world, really, and also the fact that they're under threat and need to be protected.
How far will the workshop experience help you in your interactions with others?
I think it will allow me to approach people maybe with a sense of a deeper sense of gentleness and holding and understanding that how important those things are for myself and for a lot of people need that. So I think the workshop allowed me to have that experience of touch, gentleness, nurturing, stillness with another person, and that's really valuable.
How could we improve the workshop or retreat?
Well, a couple of things come to mind. One is I think that when we learned the hand signals, we never really returned to that, or I think that could be something that could be explored more, like the come here and move closer and things. I think that could be sort of like a theme throughout somehow, because it's actually very directly connecting with the bonobo way of language. And something else that occurred to me is I think sometimes there was a little bit. Some of the things we did went a little too quickly into group interaction or one-on-one interaction, and that there were sort of certain ways that we could maybe sort of relate to ourselves with gentle touch and nurturing feelings. So that could be explored a little bit more, I think, of just sort of before we begin to expand into interaction with other people, actually learn this stuff, for ourselves a little bit.
If you wanted to, how will you maintain your connection to the bonobo spirit?
Interesting. Well, I think that the first thing that occurs to me is to connect with the bonobo spirit is just to spend more time in nature, and maybe in nature, just sort of more intentional acts of self-love and self-nurture, and just really remembering that animals' whole lives are spent outside in nature, and really tuning into that level of existence, really.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.